So if you're watching this video, you might be absolutely brand new to forward driving, and that's fantastic. You might have had a brand new car and you want to get out there and drive on all these epic beaches we have here in Australia, and that's awesome because that's what this lifestyle is all about. But this video is going to give you 5 tips and tricks on how to do it successfully, not get bogged, and carry the right equipment. So you might be an expert, you might be a beginner. This video is going to have a little bit of knowledge in there for everybody. So hopefully you get something out of it. Please, as always, like and subscribe to the channel. It's free and it definitely makes a big difference to helping the channel out. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So tip number 1 is going to be equipment. What do you need to come out to the beach? Well, my golden rule is you should always have a shovel with you, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to get stuck. But it's also handy if you're out with the family, you can dig some holes with the kids. But get yourself a long-handed shovel, because the reason I say a long-handed shovel is perfect for the beach is, first, you don't need to bend your back, and second, you can get yourself right underneath the car to get rid of that sand. So you can get those real small shovels, which are about yay big, and they fold on themselves and they look really cool and they're nice and compact and they look like those little army shovels. They're, from my experience, not great, mainly because if you do get the car stuck and it's bellied out, and that means the car is literally sitting on the ground, tires are spinning freely, all that kind of stuff, those little shovels aren't that great because you can't get underneath the car to get the sand out. Whereas this is essentially the length of the car, so you can get right into the middle of the car and pull all that sand out and free yourself. So 40 bucks, 30 bucks from Bunnings, get yourself a long-handed shovel. They're perfect. That should be in your car at all times when you're on the beach. Second thing, you've got snatch straps and equalizer straps and shackles. So the shackle is essentially to connect your car to another car if they haven't got the right recovery hooks and that kind of thing, but they're a handy little thing if you need to connect it to something. Now, I would recommend a rope shackle over a D shackle. If you've only got D shackles, that's all you've got, right? You're going to have to use what you've got. These are a little bit safer. If something is going to go wrong, it's not a massive metal hook going through windows and that kind of thing. So the old rope shackles are pretty good and they're pretty cheap these days, so they're not overly expensive. Your equalizer strap is there to go between the 2 chassis rails. This isn't needed, but it's handy. But if you're going to buy a recovery kit, it might be worth grabbing one anyway. They're pretty cheap. So an equalizer strap is pretty simple. In the name, it equalizes the force between the 2 recovery points. So you put this in between the 2 recovery points, and then you can hook the snatch and all that kind of thing around it, and that gives you a better recovery because it doesn't put as much stress on one side of the car. It gives you an equal pull from both sides rather than just one side. So they're handy, but not 100% needed. And then you've got the trusty. These are about 30, 40 bucks. You can get them from a lot of places. This is a Rhino 4x4 version. So I've had this for ages. So this is purely to put your car connected to another car. You're bogged, the other car is going to pull you out. Now, this is only obviously handy if you have another car in your convoy that can pull you out. But in Australia, we're pretty lucky. 9 times out of 10, on a sunny day, there's going to be thousands of people out on the beach, and there's going to be plenty of people who can help you. But the golden unwritten rule is, if you're going to the beach, you supply this. It's not up to me to supply my equipment to get you out. So make sure you have this in your kit, because if you don't, you're going to get a few bad looks, because you should be coming out prepared rather than just coming out and winging it. So if you've got one of these in your car, you're going to, for starters, have a better chance of pulling yourself out. But yeah, you should always carry one of these in your car. And that's pretty much it for equipment side of things. There's going to be a few additions to equipment that's going to come into the other parts of the video, but this is the main stuff you need purely to get you out there. So it's very, very simple. Shovel, snatch straps, snatch blocks, and recovery straps. Like it's pretty basic, guys. So don't go too excited. Don't go to the forward drive shop and absolutely load yourself up. You know, you can get extra things like max tracks and treads and that kind of thing. They're great for self-recoveries and they are good little products, but you don't need it just to go purely on the beach. So just think about that. If you want to get them, that's great. Give yourself a little bit of extra chance of recovery. You don't need to rely on the snatch straps so much, but they're not needed. 9 times out of 10, you can find someone who give you a hand out there on the beach. So tip number 2 is all about tire pressures. This is the most key part of driving anywhere on the beach, anywhere in the world. If you have the right tire pressures, you won't have an issue. There were cars 30 years ago with 50 horsepower driving down the beach, no dramas at all, because they had 10 to 12 psi in their tires. There are cars now with 500 horsepower who still get stuck on the beach because, for one, they don't put their tire pressures down, and that is the worst thing you can do on the beach. So number 1 key to driving anywhere on sand, dirt, in the desert, tire pressures. Now, I was lucky enough to meet these guys. These guys are called Outback Sapphire. He actually gave me these to try. So essentially it's a little tire deflation kit. You can get them on his website, which is Outback Sapphire. And they are just a preset 16 PSI tire pressure gauge. So nice and simple. All they do is go into your valve and they let the tires down to 16 PSI. And they worked out really well. I tried them for the first time today. They were already preset from the box to be 16 PSI, which is perfect for beach pressures. So I went 16 PSI. You'll probably see on these tires, they're really bellied out. So it's giving you a lot of footprint. And the big thing about tire pressures is when you're driving on the beach, don't be afraid to adjust them further if it gets softer. So if you're driving along the beach and it feels like it's really getting boggy and maybe it's going through a bit of a wet bit of the sand and that's really bogging your car down, and let's say you're at 22 PSI, which is still a safe PSI for driving on the beach. There's nothing wrong with that air pressure, but don't be afraid to drop them down even further. If you're really stuck and you're getting really bogged, there's no issue with going down to single digits, but be very careful when you do go down to single digits because you might do a thing which is called rolling the tire off a bead. If you're in single digit pressures, make sure you're not doing anything really harsh with the steering wheel, turning really hard, going around bends and that kind of thing, because that's where you can cause issues and take your tire off the rim. And if you do that on the beach, you're going to have a bad time. Trust me. I haven't done it myself, but I've seen many people do it, and it is an absolute shocker of a thing to change out tires and it gets sand in it, and it's just really not a good time. So make sure you keep an eye on your tire pressures. First things first, get down to like 20 to 16 PSI. That's a very safe pressure for a lot of cars. Put yourself in forward drive and you're going to have no issues on the beach. If you do start feeling a little bit stuck, you can't get up a dune or something like that, drop a bit more pressure out of the tires and you won't have any issues. So one thing I will say is heat will affect tire pressures. Now, if you're driving around the beach and spending a whole day out here and it's 30 degrees and the sun's belting down, this lovely sand is nice and hot, it's going to make these tires hot, and obviously all the friction, that kind of thing, will increase the tire pressure. So you might start off with 16 PSI, but at the end of the run, or maybe you're halfway down the beach or something like that, you might go up to 20 PSI because obviously the heat in those tires is increasing the pressure. So just keep an eye on that, because if you start at 24 and let's say it goes up 4 PSI, you're back up at 28, which is pretty high for beaches, right? So a lot of people sometimes don't realize that when you're driving on the beach, you're actually increasing your tire pressures, all the friction and all that kind of stuff is happening to these guys as you're driving along the sand. So just keep that in the back of your head. But the biggest tip I can give you out of this video, if you don't take anything else out of this video, please take this. Get your tire pressures right. 16 to 20 PSI is absolutely perfect for a beach. You will not have an issue. Trust me, I've driven on many beaches for the last 7 years, driving off-road. I live 5 minutes from the beach. My go-to is 16 PSI. I never get stuck, ever. So tire pressures is absolutely key. As I said, shout out to Outback Sapphire. He gave me this kit, so I didn't pay for it, but so far, on the first time I've used this guy, it went straight down to 16 PSI. I can sit in the car while it's deflating. I believe you can actually leave them on as you're driving, because obviously they're bolted onto the tire valve. So you can leave them on as you're driving on the beach and let them go down to pressure as you're driving, or just leave them on the car. So great little bit of kit, and yeah, I'm going to use them a fair bit more because these are really handy to have in the glove box. And as I said, they come in a little pouch. They're nice and easy, so pretty cool. And you get 4 in there, 1 for each tire, and you're ready to rock and roll. So chuck it in the glove box and you'll never have an issue of letting your tires down. So great little kit there from Outback Sapphire. So let's go to tip number 3. So tip number 3 is you've just gotten yourself bogged. What do you do? So the first thing I always do, if I get bogged on the beach, I instantly take my foot off the throttle, because naturally your instincts is to power out. Now, sometimes this works if you have like a 500 horsepower Y62 Patrol. 9 times out of 10, I could always pull myself out of the bog because I just had the raw power to dig and dig and dig. But sometimes that just doesn't work. You've dug yourself down, the car's going down, it's not moving forward anymore, you've got no forward momentum, you're just digging yourself down. The further you dig yourself down, if you get to the chassis, as I said in tip number 1, you got a lot of digging to do. You got to dig out all the sand, essentially from underneath the car. Even if you have max tracks, if it's bottomed out, you're going to have a hard time getting that thing out without moving some sand. First things first, take your foot off the throttle and stop yourself from digging down any further. Second tip is put it in drive and then put it in reverse and see if you can rock yourself out of the bog. So what you want to do is rock the car. So you're sort of rocking it, and this is compacting all the sand on the front and the back of the car. And what it's going to hopefully do is give you just enough to get yourself out. If that doesn't work and you just move a little bit forward but then dig down again, all right, this is where you're probably going to need your shovel, and this is probably going to where you need your snatch strap, and potentially where you're going to need treads or a max strax to get yourself out. So as I said at the start of this tip, just don't dig yourself down any further, because you're just going to be absolutely put yourself into a world of hurt. So the next thing you need to worry about is how you're going to get yourself out. So start digging. Dig around all the tires, make it free. So make all the space in front of the tire and behind the tire free. Drop your air pressures down a bit. If they're back up to 22 psi, drop them down a bit. That might be just enough to get you out, but dig all 4 tires out. So you give yourself a little bit of a ramp to get yourself out. If that doesn't work, all right, start yelling at people as they're driving past to see if they can give you a snatch. Now with a snatch, you can do it from the front or you can do it from the rear. If you're doing the snatch from the rear, do it from the tow bar. Now, I'll be very clear with this. Do not do it off the tow bar ball. Do it from the tow bar. There's a pin that goes through there. Take that out, put your snatch through that, and put it through. Now, you can obviously get little bits of equipment that have like a D-shackle that is like a little pin, and it goes in there, and it allows you to put a snatch strap on that. If you haven't got one of those, that's fine. You can use those pins. You're better off bending that pin and getting yourself out rather than doing it off the tow ball, because the tow ball can snap off and that becomes a projectile and goes through your car. So horrible way of doing a recovery, and still people do it to this day. So please make sure you don't do it off the tow ball. If you do it from the front, please make sure you do it from a rated recovery point. Do not do it off the tow hooks that come with the car. They are not designed to pull a 3-ton or a 2-ton vehicle from the sand with all that force that the other vehicle is adding to it, plus the snatch. It's tons and tons of force. They're not designed to do that. So please do not use those tow hooks. Please use a rated recovery hook, or please use a rated recovery point that you've added to the vehicle. And I'll show you some photos of those in the video. But don't use those tow hooks. Make sure, if you have to, just go from the back. If you've got a tow bar installed, you're pretty safe. You can obviously do it from there. As I said, start of this tip, please do not bog yourself down. Don't get scared. If you fall down, it's easier to dig a car out that's only just a little bit bogged than very bogged. So the next thing I want to talk about is tip number 4. It's going to be beach etiquette. Now, this just comes down to being a nice person, right? If you're a genuine nice person with a bit of courtesy and that kind of thing, you will drive the speed limits down the beach, normally 30, 40 kilometers an hour, cruising down. But if you see people, because it's not just you down here, right? You got fishermen, you got people enjoying the beach, you got families, you got people cracking around in the dunes. There are other people out here enjoying themselves as well. Make sure you slow down when you're going past family cars. Kids aren't the smartest people in the world. They're going to run out without any explanation, and you're not going to be able to stop in time because you're doing 50, 60 Ks past them. It's no different you're doing 50, 60 Ks driving on the street and a kid runs out from their house. You're not going to stop in time. You're going to hit them, and it's probably going to be fatal. So make sure when you're going past families, drop it down a gear, go back into second, go down 20 Ks an hour, and just cruise past. If you've got your tire pressures and all that kind of thing set, you're not going to have to drive fast because you can just cruise down the beach at 20 Ks an hour in third gear with no worries and not labouring the car. But please make sure you slow down when you're going past families. Make sure you show respect, show courtesy to everyone on the beach, because it's not just you out here, everyone else is trying to have a good time too. I see it all the time and time again. I'm down here at Buffalo Beach at the moment, which is my local. I generally spend every second or third weekend down here, and I see it all the time. People just ramming through at 80 Ks an hour, not giving any regard to anyone else that's on the beach. And you got people with families, fishermen, all that kind of stuff. One little kid that comes out not knowing what they're doing, all over. It's going to ruin your life. It's not worth it. So please just slow down, do the right thing, stick to your left, do the same road rules. So if you use the road rules that are on the street, on the beach, it's pretty safe. Keep on the left, keep on the right, all that kind of stuff. When you're going past families, you're going past cars that are on the beach, just slow down, because you just don't know who's going to be there, what kind of kid or something like that. And as I said, don't drive too close to cars that are on the water's edge and that kind of thing, having a good time. But as I said, just show some courtesy. There's such a lack of courtesy in the world these days, but please show some courtesy when you're on the beach, because you just don't know what's going to happen, and you're always going to be ready for something. So if you've got your tire pressure set up right, you're not going to have to do 80 Ks down the beach just to keep your car, the momentum going. So as I said, that's the one tip I can give you that's, never fun, but please slow the hell down when you're on the beach. So tip number 5 is going to be momentum. Now, what do I say when I mean momentum? When you're driving on the sand or any kind of sandy surface, if you're moving, 9 times out of 10, you're going to stay moving. unless there's quicksand or something like that on the beach. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to continue to move and move forward. If you've got the right tyre pressures, which as I said, come back to tip number 2, if you've got the tyre pressures set up and you've done all the right things and you're in low range or you're in 4 high and you're using 4 drive and whatever, you're going to continue momentum, happy days. You should be able to cruise down the beach in 3rd gear and not have an issue. As soon as you lose momentum, that's when things go wrong. So if you slow down to a stop and gun it from the takeoff, instead of slowly easing into it, what's going to happen is the tyres are going to spin. That first initial spin is going to drag your car down a little bit. And then if you haven't got the right tyre pressures in the car, it's going to continue to drag the tyres down and you're going to get stuck. The best way to take off on a beach is slowly. Beach driving is all about smoothness. So if you've ever watched like a coach talk about a race car, like a race car driver, right? The biggest thing they talk about is don't be jerky, be smooth, power in, power out, brake in, brake out. It's the same concept you take into the beach. If you get on the beach and you slowly build up the power, you're going to get so much more further with that momentum because you're not digging in. If you get on the beach and just slam it, the first thing you're going to do is go straight down because all your tires are just digging and then it's going to go straight down. If you're going to take off and you just gun it, dig straight down. But if you take off and you're going slowly, you're just going to cruise off and then you can build up the momentum as you're going. You see time and time again these people, and it's a bit of a trend nowadays, doing rooster tails and that kind of thing from standstill. As I said, all you're doing is absolutely digging yourself down and you're not making any forward momentum. So 9 times out of 10, when people do get stuck is 1, the tyre pressures aren't right, 2, they've taken off like a bull at a gate, and yeah, that's just a recipe for disaster really. So I'm hoping these tips gave you a little bit of insight about how to drive on the beach, and I really do hope you get some information out of them and you can use them on your next time you go into the beach, and you can really enjoy this lifestyle we have in Australia, which is going on the beach on the weekend and just spending a whole day out here enjoying the water and that kind of stuff. We're so privileged in the world to be able to do this. It's it's just something you don't want to lose, and something, if you've never done it before and you're really nervous about going forward driving, watch this. As I said, hopefully this video has just given you all the things you need to get out there on the beach with a bit of confidence and go tackle all those awesome beaches we have in Australia. But that's enough from me. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, guys, and have a great Sunday. Bye.